Aha, okay, I'm back.
Did you happen to log in with Chrome or Firefox?
I am in with Firefox.
Okay, good, because Firefox you can screen share. Chrome has problems with screen share.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, I'm in as a moderator, and I just hit the record button.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Hi, Jennifer. Yeah, we haven't actually started yet. I was just giving folks a couple more minutes to see if they connect.
Okay, thanks, Wilma.
Okay, I do have a couple minutes after 11, so I don't know if you guys want to start off now or if we want to wait another minute or two.
I think we could start now.
Okay, so Francesca's already started the recorder, so we will be recording the session. I know there were a few folks who were interested in learning more about some of the usability testing that we did, but couldn't make it today. So we wanted to make sure to have the recording available for people to watch after the fact. And I pasted the Etherpad link in if you want to go ahead and sign in. I haven't done that myself, actually. So. Okay. And what I thought we would spend some time today going over is some of the UX testing that we did at the virtual conference. We did a test script on lessons on some of the new functionality there, and I think you'll see we got some interesting feedback from folks on some of the new features that have been added. I don't know, Francesca, do you want to go ahead and share your screen?
What's the difference between a Mandarin and a Clement?
Sure. Let me, so first in the chat window, I'll paste the link to the
I'm hearing
Google
a lot
Doc.
of background noise. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let me just paste the link. Copy.
Oh, they taste slightly different.
Paste. Okay. So this is a link to the Google Doc, which has all of our findings. Let me just share my screen because that might make it a little bit easier.
Mandarin oranges are a couple calories.
Share my desktop. but it looks like there's a problem sharing it with Firefox.
Oh, really?
I'm going to need to update. It's telling me that Java's out of date.
I think you can just ignore that and try it anyway.
Okay. Let's see.
Yay, that worked.
Okay, cool. All right, so make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so everyone can see. Oh yeah, I can see it too. Okay, so these are the findings from our usability test. Again, I pasted a link to this document because there are some hyperlinks just to help create some context. But pretty much during the virtual conference about a month ago, we ran 5 usability sessions, specifically looking at the new lessons functionality that's currently in Trunk. The new functionality deals with how to manipulate the layout of content within the lessons tool. So here is a course site that we built out. So users were instructed to pretend that they were teaching a course site about history of Halloween. We just kind of picked it because it was around Halloween. And as you can see, this is the end result of what we hoped that they would have done. But pretty much they had to put their content into these different buckets, which was the functionality that we were testing. And so some interesting findings. All of our observations are in this larger sheet. This is called a rainbow observation sheet. Typically when you do usability testing, as you're running people through a script, you have observers watching the sessions kind of giving a rating on a scale of 1 to 5 on how much effort it takes someone to complete the task that you're asking of them. And so after we did all of our sessions, we kind of pulled together all of our observations, and you could just get a very nice overview of where the pain areas are, and really where your development efforts should be focused in. So those of us that facilitated the test, we got together last week and just kind of talked about what some of the quick wins might be in terms of changes, what might be more effort. But I'm actually going to start down here. So our major finding was that people cannot figure out how to put the content blocks together and separate them, which is essentially the purpose of the new functionality that Chuck has been developing. So it's interesting, you know, that the thing that we were looking to test is the thing that kind of came out as not being that obvious in terms of how to work or manipulate it. So some people had a hard time understanding the icons that were selected representing this functionality. Some people had a hard time understanding just where to find it. A lot of people were making references to Microsoft Office as trying to come up with a analogy or a comparison. You know, when they edit the look and feel of a Word doc, they expect certain icons or certain menu statements to be used, and they weren't really finding that within the lessons tool. And so based off of our observations, the group kind of came up with a series of both quick wins in terms of enhancements or changes to make this a little bit easier, and changes that would require perhaps some more development effort to also make it easier. And we wanted to separate it out from quick wins versus more effort, mostly for development purposes, so that a developer can look at this and, you know, say, yeah, I could put this in relatively easy. And so that's about it. Does anyone have any questions, or you want to add something? Any feedback? I feel like I talked a lot.
I thought that was a great overview, Francesca. Thanks.
Cool.
I don't know if Jennifer or Louisa, who were involved in the testing, if you guys have anything you want to add. I'm not sure if their microphones are on.
This is Jennifer. No, that kind of summarizes, I think, what we all found in our testing experiences, and I think making it, like Francesca said, is similar to something you use every day, like the Microsoft products or something else. It'll make it a lot faster for them to be able to build their pages.
I know just in terms of a few things that I wouldn't mind getting some additional feedback from this group. After we talked last week about some of these quick wins and the icons and such, I put in, if you scroll down, I think it turned out to be like the third or fourth page. I put in some suggestions for possible icons to change out to. And what I did was I pulled these from the Font Awesome icon set, which is what they're using for all the other icons in Sakai 11, to keep some ease of use and consistency there for the developers. But I was interested in seeing if any of these suggestions resonate in particular with the folks on the call today. So I know one of the icons that we thought was a problem was the cog, because it's used in a few different places and it means different things. And you'll see in that one screenshot there, it's on the screen 3 different times at the same time, and each time you click on it, it's a different set of options. So, so that was one that we identified that maybe needed to be swapped out with something else. So I was thinking either perhaps the wrench, which kind of looks like you're changing settings, or there's a slightly different cog icon. And there's also one that kind of represents columns, which could potentially be used for the text, the cog that appears right above the text. Because when you go to that menu, it talks about columns. So that kind of made sense to me. Any thoughts on those?
Dave is typing in the chat. I don't think he has a microphone hooked up, but he's saying that he was a participant. Oh, you do? Oh, it's noisy. Okay. He's saying that he was a participant, and he agrees with Wilma.
Okay, so Dave likes the wrench.
Yeah.
Yeah, that settings button is a tough one to decide what to put there.
I like the wrench though.
Yeah, I thought that was different enough. I was a little worried that the cog with the 2 smaller cogs was still a little too similar. So perhaps something that was, more different, like the wrench would be a better choice for that. Okay, so moving on. We talked about creating a layout menu, and this would be kind of in the more effort category of what we were thinking, in separating out some of the layout features from the adding content features.
Yeah.
And Francesca, I don't know if you want to pull up a couple of those menus in the application since you had it up.
Oh, sure.
To show people what we were talking about, because it seems like there's a little bit of confusion in finding the new functionality, and I think part of that was that people didn't really expect it to be under an area where you would add content items, because it's not a content item, it's modifying the layout of the content that's on the page. So if you go to just the add content link at the top, you don't get the new features. You get this menu here, which shows all the different content items, but it's very, very similar to the menu you get if you go to the plus sign.
It's just that part.
Yeah, so the 2 layout features are kind of buried in that menu, and when people look at it quickly, they didn't seem to differentiate between the 2 menus. They seemed to think they were the same, and so they couldn't find, maybe they remembered they saw add section break somewhere, but they couldn't remember where it was, or they just didn't notice it at all because it kind of got buried in with some of the content item options. So we were thinking that perhaps breaking out those pieces to a separate menu all by themselves would make them more apparent and make more sense for users when they go looking.
Yep.
So I put 3 suggestions for potential layout icons. I found some that looked sort of like a grid. There was sort of a larger grid and a smaller grid.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was a newspaper one, which also kind of looked like maybe like a template of a page. So that's why I pulled that one. So I thought
I
those
like that.
might be potential icons that we could use for a layout menu if we go that route. Let's see, I see some stuff in the chat here. Dave says columns is nice, but there's more to that area than just columns. Oh, you're talking about the settings. Do we have a hammer? No, I don't think there's a hammer, although I can look. We were using the Font Awesome fonts, so let me see if there's a hammer. I can do a quick search and see. Don't recall seeing one though. Nope, no hammer. Sorry. Let's see. Jennifer says that the arrows on the left of each box is also a way to change out the layout. Yeah, that was another piece of the functionality that I think confused people until they sort of figured out what it was. It was a little bit trial and error. The little arrow that appears in the top left of a text area when it's split into different columns or different sections, you can use that to sort of get rid of the section or column break and rejoin those sections. That was something that people didn't really understand until they clicked on it a couple times to figure out what it did.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that we could suggest a better icon for that. I think that icon was actually an improvement over a couple other ones that were in earlier iterations. I think there was a scissors and there was like a little, some people thought it looked like a little ribbon or a stick figure. So there were a few different icons that were tried there. I think the arrows was the best of the bunch. Anyway, but the icons at the top, the set that were chosen to sort of pull out certain features for adding content, adding a content link, embedding a link, and adding a subpage didn't seem to be very intuitive to the folks that did the testing. So we were wondering if there were other icons that were more indicative of those actions. For example, subpage is a folder, and that didn't really strike a lot of people as adding a page. It looked more like adding some sort of folder rather than a page. So we were thinking that maybe a file icon that looks like a page might be a better choice there. I'm interested to see what other people think about that.
Yeah, either subpage or just create another sub lesson, or I think, the icon choice of a folder.
Oh, for whatever the lesson page looks like?
Yeah. Like I can understand why a folder was chosen because it's like, oh, add another subdirectory, which is like a super techie thing.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't make any sense for, a faculty member.
Right.
Yeah, so I like the file choice. Like if you're going to keep that phrase subpage, which is fine, I think it's less of an issue than the icon. Then yeah, either picking those two would be a good choice.
Okay, Dave says he likes the folder and the hover text. Yeah, I think it says, I think the hover text tells you what the action is. I think they all do, but a lot of people did have to hover to figure out sort of what it did. And then also we were thinking that the content link one, it looks just like a web link. So it might be a little confusing because what you're actually doing is you're adding a link to something in resources, but it looks like you're just adding a URL to the page. So I put a few choices, and these I wasn't as happy with any one icon, so I was really hoping to get other feedback on it. But I tried to think about what you're actually doing when you add a content link. So probably most of the time, if I add a content link in lessons, I'm uploading a file directly to the page, or I'm attaching a file, or attaching a link to a file that's already in resources. So, so I pulled some of the icons that sort of meant that sort of thing. Either the file one with the little brackets on it that could potentially stand for links, or possibly the upload icon, although you can do more than just upload, so I don't know if that's the best choice. And then I even thought maybe the paperclip, but again, I'm not sure if that's the best one either. I couldn't find one I was super happy with for that action, but I wasn't real thrilled with the link icon that's there, because that seemed to be, I don't know, it seemed a little arbitrary. So, thoughts? Anybody? Yeah, that's why I put the paperclip, because I'm attaching a link to something. But sometimes when you attach a file, you're uploading it from a local directory as well, so it kind of works. But again, I'm not 100% sure that's the best choice.
What about I just pasted one into the chat. But I guess since I have control, I could just
you could
pull
just
it up here. Like this one, because you're like adding something.
Maybe.
This thing. Yeah, like the idea of adding a layer or adding something within. I don't know.
Were there any plus signs with a link? No, I think the plus signs were all kind of just, it was either a plus by itself or a plus in a box, or a user with a plus sign.
No, she never. I followed up, but she never gave me one. Her response was,
There's a fire extinguisher. Kind of funny. There's like a double file one.
Yeah, she hasn't given me
Plain files.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, a plain file could work, I guess. It kind of depends on what the other one for embed looks like. Because that one right now looks like a play button for a video, which a lot of times you are embedding video, so it kind of makes sense for some use cases. But it kind of also gives the impression that you can only embed video when there's all sorts of other things you can embed. So I listed a couple of options there for a different video kind of, but it's like within a page, which looks like a file. And then that file code one that I also used above, because I thought it could potentially be indicative of embedding code. So again, not 100% convinced on this set either. I don't know if we should just leave it alone and let it look like a play button, but I know that one of the actions we did in the testing was to have users add a video. And a few folks had a little bit of trouble finding where to do that.
Yeah, a lot of folks, oops, keep getting logged out. When it came to adding the video, and this was a question that I brought up, mostly everyone went up here. So my question was, why do you have a menu that says add content if you could also add content outside of that menu?
Yeah. And the items that, because not all of the add content items are represented outside of the menu, so it's sort of like, I guess those are supposed to be the most used ones, but I don't know if that's necessarily true for all users. So are those really the best 4 icons to pull out? I know in some of the usability testing that we had done, not at the conference, but prior to that, I know a couple of people commented that they thought that maybe linking to an assignment or a quiz was done more commonly than creating another subpage. So again, that could vary depending on who's actually doing the course building. But I'm not sure what the rationale was for selecting these specific ones as the most commonly used. I don't know, Louisa, if you remember if we talked about that at all during the lessons enhancement work that we did with this Express Labs. I'm not hearing anything from Louisa, so maybe her mic's not active. So let's see, let me read off some of what Dave put in here. It might be the folks have to adjust to adding embeddable content that's not video. He does click on the link and get a quiz or assignment. Do I attach an assignment or quiz if we go with the paperclip? Just thinking out loud. Oh, so you're thinking of the paperclip icon for attaching quizzes? Is that, no? Confusion, yeah. Do I attach a quiz? Do I link to a quiz? Oh, I see. Right.
This says link to a test or a quiz.
Yeah. Right. Others might not realize if they're linking or attaching. That's a good point. And actually, while you have that menu up, one thing that we talked about was just consistency in the way items are listed. Like, for example, you've got link to an assignment, link to a test or quiz, and then you add a link to a forum or topic. Just a little more consistency in the way that they're listed might make it easier for people to find the item. Is it add or link? Well, actually, it's add or link with any of them, because if you go to link to an assignment and there's no assignment, it gives you the option to add an assignment. Same thing with a quiz. So you're not really just linking, you might be adding.
Yeah, I think you have to, maybe instead of saying add, it's like create a quiz and then link it.
Yeah.
Just to solidify the point that it still lives in a separate tool. I think what's really confusing about the lessons tool in general is that it's kind of becoming a hub for everything else. But the architecture of the system, like I've heard so many faculty say, like, can I just shut off the assignments tool from the left, but just have it like still be able to pull through it in lessons?
Right. Yeah, and I know a lot of people who do that with quizzes too. They'll turn off the tests and quizzes and just have the tests and quizzes available through lessons because they want people to go in a particular, conditional release
pathway
sequence. Yeah, you have to go there if you want to see the feedback, which is kind of a limitation. But I like the create/link to a quiz. That might be more descriptive of what actually happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we were also talking about putting some titles to these bundles. So like these are tools that are already in Sakai. These are native lessons items. These are like style or layout stuff.
Well, the top part is actually adding content on the page.
Yeah.
But then we had the ones that were related to the columns and the sections.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was more of a layout item. So we're thinking about maybe just grouping them in this, labeling them within this menu so it's a little bit more clear what the different buckets are.
Yeah, because they're already grouped out based on how they're related to each other. It's just not obvious at all. Like a new person would have no idea that these three things, like it makes sense why they're together, you know, because they're all additional Coursera tools.
Right.
Yeah, add lesson items, add page items, add content items. Yep, those are really good. Yeah, Dave just typed a bunch of suggestions in the chat.
Another thing that we talked about was the confusion over the plus sign, because the plus sign, it shows up in a few different places, and depending on, you know, where you click on it, you know, you might be adding it in a different spot. So we were wondering, do you really need that many plus signs? So I'm not sure if I'm summarizing that correctly. Francesca, you want to help me out?
Well, I think it's just, yeah, they're kind of, I'm trying to adjust my screen so you can kind of see it a little bit more. Yeah, okay. So they're just like, they're everywhere. And all of these icons up top. So you have like these icons to the left that deals with how to manipulate the block once you've created it. But then you have all these additional things within the block itself when you click on the plus icon. So I think just consolidating those choices. And in the document, I believe that's what Louisa was starting to spec out. So having a layout button instead of this plus icon and kind of condensing a lot of those choices that you get across the top into one cohesive drop down. And so that was another idea, but that definitely falls into the more effort.
Yeah. And also, like, once you get a few items on the page, if they're small items, like, you know, a link to a quiz or a link to something, especially you get a whole bunch of icons sort of stacked up pretty quickly on the page.
Yep.
So, you know, especially for mobile, I could see, you know, trying to click on one of them and hitting the wrong button. Okay, so Dave's saying that would be similar to the add content button we already have. Yes, the add content button in the bottom right corner it basically gives you the same menu that you have in the top right corner of each little section area. And if you happen to hit the one all the way at the bottom of the page, it adds the item to the bottom of the page. If you hit the add content button at the top of the top menu of lessons, it adds it to the bottom of the page. If you hit the add content item next to a particular section, I think it's supposed to add it right under that section. So it allows you, I guess, to place items in, you know, within the existing content items without necessarily reordering, I think was the intent there. But it's a little bit confusing if you're not sure how that works and you just hit one of those pluses, then things could maybe be added in unexpected locations. No, there's not any help text yet for explaining behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing in the tips section yet. No, no, no.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when we update the documentation for version 11, we'll try to put some of that in there so that there's some guidance for people. But since the layout is still somewhat in flux, we haven't updated any of the documentation yet for 11. Dave asks how the reorder works with side-by-side columns. Do you want to demonstrate, Francesca?
Oh man, I'll try. All right, so this is how you squish them together. Right, if I click that. So now the video before it was in its own box, and now it got pushed up into the larger box. But if I go click in the plus, add section break above. This is where I get confused. I think I have to go to the one above it, or actually the one below. Add section break. Yeah. So whatever it is that you want to isolate, you have to go to the item below it. So let's say I want this Ancient Origins of Halloween to be in its own bucket. I have to go to the one below and say add section break above. And then the same thing. So that's how you isolate something. You kind of have to cut it off from the one before. Where ideally it would be great to just have some sort of drag and drop, or just like be able to click on something and pull it out and have it be in its own box. It's kind of weird that mentally you have to make the choice to like, okay, I want this, but I got to go to the one either below it or above it to kind of isolate it.
Yeah, I think several people mentioned that they were wanting to do the drag and drop. That would be
totally.
much more intuitive. If you go to reorder at the top, you can actually move those section breaks around. So that's another way that you can sort of, you want to make sure you have section breaks above and below something if you want it isolated. So that's another way you can kind of reorder things on the page.
Although I'm pretty sure I just had this in its own block.
Yeah, I think you did. Maybe did you hit the X on reorder? Because you can delete the section breaks pretty easily.
No. I don't know. Save. Okay, now it stayed.
Okay. Oh, and that was one thing that we thought might make the functionality be a little more apparent to people when they first go into lessons, is that initially everything's all in one big block. It's not separated out. And so I think Louisa suggested that maybe if every time you add an item, it adds it in its own little section, that might make it more visible to users that there is the ability to break them into sections. And at that point, you can combine them if you want them to be all in one big block. But starting them off as separate blocks would at least let people know that that functionality is there, because I think a lot of folks in the usability testing fell back on the workarounds that they had used before. When we asked them to break things up, they would go into the HTML editor, or they would put some extra white space. They fell back on the techniques that they were used to using when the functionality was not available.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think we should add that to the list.
Yeah.
Have content go into blocks automatically. Easier to do later on. Okay.
Okay. Luis is asking if we have a link to the wireframe. You mean the old wireframe? The one from Express Labs? I'm sure I have it somewhere. I don't know if I can find it. Let me look for it.
I have a question. So what would next steps look like in terms of kind of moving this forward? Should we give the rest of the group here some time to look at everything and if they want to make recommendations? Because I know we talked about trying to get this to Chuck kind of before the winter break starts for everyone, which is like the next week and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, we did want to give him a chance to have the information to synthesize down into a few suggestions in case he's going to be working on it during the break. The code freeze for Sakai 11 looks like it's probably going to happen at the end of January, maybe at or just after Sakai camp. So if we could get him, whatever recommendations we have with enough, lead time that he can actually get those in, that would be ideal. So yeah, and I think Louisa, you were going to be on vacation next week, was it?
Hi. Hey, I'm fresh free. I ordered from Farm.
Yeah.
And I had to do it online at 11:30. Okay. They're telling me that I could deliver it to like 1.
Somebody's unmuted.
1:07 to 1:17. And that's
Sorry.
lunch meeting at noon.
Was that you? Okay. So I think that's. Oh, you found the PDF. Okay, good. Yeah, I found a link to the wireframe, but I think you have to actually log in to get to it. So the PDF's probably better. Anyway, so yeah, if we've already shared the Google document with everybody on the call today, if you have any comments or suggestions, if you could add some comments on that document. Does everyone have editing rights, or is it just view only? I'm looking now. Yeah, it looks like anybody with the link can edit. So if anybody has any suggestions, just add a comment or a note somewhere on that page, and we'll try to clean this up and get it in a little more refined shape before we send it back to Chuck. But we'd like to have that to him in the next week. So today's Monday. So if you do have any comments, if you could add them by I would say Thursday of this week. That way we have some time to go through and take a quick look to see if there's anything that needs to be explained a little bit more as we clean up the document. Oh yeah, and as Francesca notes, the session recordings are available if you want to view the actual sessions to see, how they went and what participants did directly. You can certainly view those. We'll be happy to share the links. Just let us know. Yeah, and they do pair up with that rainbow observation sheet. The red, I don't know if we explained or if you guys already know, but the red items were the ones that people had a lot of trouble with.
Yeah, it's like really bad.
Yeah. Yellow was sort of borderline. Green, everything was okay. But
Yeah.
red is kind of like red alert. There's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate, we're going to try to have our findings written up by the end of this week, by Friday. So again, if you have any comments or suggestions, please add them by, Thursday at the latest, if not sooner, so that we can work them in. Lisa says she's wondering if we need to quote from the testing recordings in the results document. Yeah, we might want to. We might want to just sort of summarize, like 3 out of 5 people had trouble with this or something of that nature.
Yeah. Or just talk about the level of frustration. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we have about 15 minutes left. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about today, or any other thoughts you might have on the results here?
I guess the only question that I had was if anyone from this group was going to the Sakai camp, because I know it's a lot of developers that usually go. So if anyone from the UX group was just going, it might be a nice way to kind of start working with developers more in the community.
Yeah, I'm actually planning to go because I live here in Orlando, so it's easy for me to get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll be there. I don't know if anyone else from this group is planning to go. If you have anything you want me to convey, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, they called me. Okay. So they called me to say I know.
Yeah, I know it tends to be kind of developer heavy, but they did say that there's going to be some planning and some non-coding discussion. So hopefully we can work in some of the UX concerns at that time.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, if there's no other discussion, we could probably end a little bit early today. One last point of order is to talk about our next meeting, because we usually meet the first Monday. When is the first Monday in January? Are people going to be around that week? Or that would be the 4th.
That's my first day back after the break. I imagine it might be the first day back for most people.
So I don't know if we want to wait and schedule it out for the second Monday, maybe the 11th. Would that be better for folks?
Yeah, that's good. It might be better.
Okay. I'll post a note on the list. 11th is your first day of class. Okay. 11th works for Matt. All right. So maybe I'll do like a doodle poll or something to see which Monday is better. I'm thinking the 4th is probably not going to be great because a lot of people, that'll be their first day back.
Yeah.
So we'll check on that. Oh, and one other thing is I talked to Neil to see if we could get a Google email address for the group. So he said that he could create a UX email for us if we want to have a group email, just to make it a little easier if we need to email everybody to inform them about something. that's specific to our group, not something that we would just announce on one of the other more general lists, and also for people to contact our group if they want to have something tested. So if you would like to be added to that group, let me know. Just send me your email address, and I'll forward that to Neil so that he can set up the group for us.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, good. And I see somebody's taking notes. Thank you. The UX email group. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. Well, unless there's anything else that anybody would like to talk about right now, I thought I saw something from Lisa. Oh, how is Gradebook NG? I heard that it just got added to Master, so it is on Master now if you want to go check it out. But that's all I know. That's the latest news that I've heard on it. I don't know if anybody else has more recent information. I can put a link here. It should be on the experimental trunk master. Yeah, the terminology is changing now that we're in GitHub. Master is what trunk was, so they're still used somewhat interchangeably, but I think they're trying to get people to use the terminology master rather than trunk, just to have everything kind of consistent with the way that GitHub handles it. So if you go to trunk or master, you can preview it there. Lisa's saying that there's a potentially serious problem in Gradebook 2, and she wants to test Gradebook NG to see if the problem is there as well. What is the problem in Gradebook 2, if you can summarize it easily? When you transfer Gradebook from an old site to a new site, the sources don't stay as they are. Well, I haven't actually tested it. I don't know how much testing Gradebook NG has had since it's just recently been added to master. Probably not a lot on master, but I'm sure it was tested prior to merging. But I do know that it was based on a lot of the back end from Gradebook 1. So hopefully the Gradebook 2 issue won't be a factor, but it definitely could use some testing. So I would encourage people to go to master and test it out to see if that's an issue, because that would definitely be a blocker issue that we'd want to make people aware of as soon as possible. Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate you being here and going over the UX results with us. And if you have any suggestions of topics for our January meeting, please let me know and we can add those to the agenda. Maybe we can actually take a look at some of the Gradebook NG stuff for our next meeting. That might be a timely thing to look at in January. So I guess that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Francesca. I appreciate you recording the meeting for us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.